Hey folks, welcome to another look at one of the features in Worldographer. I'm Joe Wetzel, the creator of the program. What you see in front of you is actually not a map created with Worldographer. This was created on the website Dungeon, DONJON.sh, I believe. And they have a fantasy map generator that you just enter a few values and it sticks this in. It puts something out like this. I just did the defaults and this is what you get. I had some people asking about how to convert this and then edit it into Worldographer because, to the best of my knowledge, that website doesn't have a way to edit the created images. So here we are. What I did was I created a new map by coming up here to File, New World Map, and I did a blank map and I set it up to 200 hexes by 86 because that's what the map that we're tracing had done or had come up with. And then I went over here to the drawers that are on the side. I opened up the trace underlay drawer, and then this is a file chooser button. Once you choose a file, that file name shows up in the button. And then I set it to be 200 by 86 and a half because their map has that extra little half hex because of the staggered nature of hexes. So this is not going to convert nicely automatically because their colors are not solid flat colors, and also the labels can throw off our image, our color sampling that we use in order to determine what terrain matches. For example, I mean, here you've got some evergreen forest, and here you've got some deciduous forest, and you're going to see that we wouldn't really be able to tell what type of forest it is because the background colors are not different, not based on the terrain. It's kind of just this nice. I mean, it's very pretty the way it's done, but it's not a match for what we can do color sampling wise. So let me show you what that looks like. If I go to Tools and Convert Underlay, and this is a pro feature, one of the paid features of Worldographer. There's a whole lot of free stuff, but we do hold back, a handful of features that we think are things that power users would like. And here I can pick the terrain type that I want to use in the map, and then it has a number of terrain types that we can select from. And kind of the more that we have selected, the more false positives that you might get, So I don't want these gray ones to trigger if I can avoid them, because we don't have any dead forest type stuff in this map, and um, you know, I could take some time to customize this, but I know it's not going to work out very well, so I'm not gonna bother. But let me just show you what we get. So this is what you get, and you can see up here we had this tundra area, and the closest terrain color-wise that we have in the set that we were selecting from was that. And over here, yeah, so we did get ocean at least. And we do have some tropical stuff here and everything, but it's not a good match. So I hit Edit, go to Undo, and we come back to this. So what to do? What you can do is we can kind of trace some of it. We can use some tools that are built into Worldographer to kind of make it a little bit easier to, so we don't have to trace every single thing. So one thing I'm going to change here is the opacity of the map. So this just sets, hey, the new terrain that I'm placing down, how opaque is it? So I like 60% because, at least for me, it gives me a good view of the terrain underneath from the map that we're tracing over, as well as being able to see the new terrain. I'm going to filter this for classic, and I'm just going to pick jungle because there's a lot of jungle here, and I'm going to basically just trace where does the original map have jungle. And this, some people would find this tedious. I like it sometimes. I find it kind of therapeutic, and with the way the world is these days with COVID, and I'm recording this in March of 2022, so we've also got Ukraine going on. So whatever is therapeutic for somebody, let them enjoy it. So I almost look at it as like, hey, This is like color by number to me. And I know coloring books have made a comeback for adults in recent years and so on. So I would rough these out, like I outline them. And then what I can do is, now I've got an option set up here, I should point out. I've got add randomness to terrain fills in children. So children is this child map functionality where you can have a world, continent, kingdom level maps where you can get into more detail, and you can have hexes within hexes. That's also one of the pro features. But once I hit paint bucket, now I'm painting this jungle. I can drop it in here, and all that stuff comes in with the jungle type. Now I'm going to do some more because we're going to show off the terrain wizard in a moment. Oop, I had the paint bucket set, so let me edit undo. Then let me do the paint bucket, turn that off. And now I'm going to not get the hexes that are kind of mostly water. I'm going to stay away from them unless they're like 90% water. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to use our automated coastline tool too. Our automated coastline tool adds a little bit of, and again, I'm not going to get too worried about making a mistake like that. I'm going to call it a happy accident. If you think about explorers and cartography of the Middle Ages, who's to say how accurate those maps really were? And I mean, if you look at some of them, if you go to some historical websites, you can see that they weren't very accurate in a lot of cases. So it's okay to not have a perfect copy, at least to me. And your players, I'm coming at this primarily from the role-playing game point of view. Your players mostly, they don't have a true sense of the world either. They don't know exactly what's what. On the other side here, I'm putting in the ocean. This is sea. Actually, I should put in ocean. Let me switch that to ocean. Go back over that with ocean, because the coastline tool has a little checkbox for converting the nearest hexes into sea. So a slight color shift for those hexes, and I will do that when I get to that point. So I'm going to just trace this with ocean, relying on the fact that that's going to switch the color for me. And I'm not going to worry about that other little continent down there, or islands, whichever they might be, for the moment. I'm just going to worry about this continent. And let me come back up here to a little bit more jungle over here. I'm not going to do every little splotch because this video would take too long in that case, I think. But we do want to do enough to give you an idea of what the big reveal is when we do the nearest neighbor fill. Although nearest neighbor fill should be a pretty good description. Terrain wizard, always like that name better, but it doesn't tell you exactly what's going on like nearest neighbor fill does. Got some more jungle here. Now I'm going to be less concerned. You won't hurt my feelings if you want to skip ahead in the video. I tend to focus on trying to get a lot of the content out there and the bug fixes and so forth. So I don't spend a lot of time editing the videos that I do. So you're free to skip ahead, and I won't mind at all. But for those of you who continue to listen, hopefully I'm able to throw in some additional ideas and facts and notes about the program that make it worth your while. And it looks like I'm deciding to do everything after all. As much as I'm protesting that I'm not going to show everything, I'm not going to do a one-to-one thing. It seems like I am. Anyway, here's my compromise. I'm I'm gonna go quick. I'm not gonna worry about every single one of these hexes. If I'm off a little bit, I'm off a little bit. Not a big deal. And I will get all this done. It should just take another minute or so to show this off. There we are. And there we are with that. And we do some basic farmland now for the rest. We're kind of just filling in. And it's doing this nearest neighbor fill for us, so I don't have to, if I'm not concerned about exactly where things lie, like this hex that's not filled in, it'll fill in randomly. It'll just look at what's closest. It'll look at all the closest ones, and whatever one is, it'll randomly pick between all the ones that are equally distant, I should say. That's probably the best way to sum it up. So yeah, if this jungle area gets a little bit bigger, not the end of the world. This one here, though, we'll circle that one pretty good. Come over here, get in here, get a little bit of that, get a little bit of this, a little here, a couple there, loop around here. Let me loop around here a little bit. I'll be a lot more random. Let's see what happens if I just get a lot more random up here in this big desert area up here. Let's see what that would do when we do the nearest neighbor fill. We will put some more desert in there, though. I mean, because if we don't have any desert in there, then it might, you wouldn't have any desert because the nearest neighbor fill won't find any desert. So that's what I end up with. I'm just going to cap it off with a couple of hills there, like what's spelled out there, and a couple of, we had a couple of mountains there. We've got a couple of mountains here. We've got a mountain here and a mountain there. And I think that's good. So let's see what we get when we run the terrain wizard. So we go to tools, terrain wizard, and we have this add randomness to the terrain fills and children. So this might, you might see a couple of spots where we will see some sandy desert in the desert, or some hills in the desert, or something like that. So that's what that will do. Run the terrain wizard, boom. Now it's doing that for the whole map. One of the enhancements that I plan to make, probably even in the next couple of days, is you'd be able to go up here to edit, select a map area, and then drag. And that's going to create this yellow box when you do that. And then it would only apply the terrain wizard to the terrain that's underneath that yellow box. So that's one enhancement that we'll probably do. So it's not trying to do it to this whole map. You can see on the mini map what it does to the surrounding areas. It doesn't really, it fills in everywhere. So you would have to, currently, if you're using this version up here in the corner, we're version 1.45. This is a beta right now. We've been, over the course of the past couple of months, we've been working on a lot of behind-the-scenes changes. So we've been doing a beta branch, but that's being shaken out, and we're pretty close to being ready to make that the regular release. In fact, version 1.46 might be that regular release. And so when we do, though, if I do get the select area feature to integrate with the terrain wizard, then only that area that you select would be changed. But you can see, so it did that fill for us. You have a little bit of grassland here that wasn't in before, and a couple of shrubs here and so forth. So you can see a few places where that occurred. And let me just show with this set to 100%, so we don't see any of the map below. So this is what we got, and so that's pretty cool. So to do our coast, though, if you do care about the coast, if you do want it to be exact, then what you would do is you go create a polygon, you set the color, and the color is this blue here is the color that you would use, and have no border or no stroke width to it. And then you're just gonna cover up where you want to. Now, as I said, I'm planning to do the terrain wizard, which would be a different approach to this, which you'll see in a moment. But I can just go in here and I can kind of trace with as much fidelity as I'm willing to spend time for. And I can trace across these, and then I just bounce out, and I'm covering up the land with that. And again, if I go back to trace underlay and go 100, now what I can do then is with the terrain, so I can manually make that border area water, sea, and change those to match. And so that's what you would do if you care about the exact coastline. You would probably do extra land, to cover up those partial hexes that are half land, half water, and then you would cover it up with this. On the other hand, if we go to the shapes, and I'm just going to remove the one that we had, so select, and I just take this, select that shape, and delete it. I can go up here to the terrain wizard, as I was saying, or rather to the generate coasts, and uncheck this, so we're not using the isometric versions of these icons, and instead we're going to add shapes, and that's going through and that's adding all these shapes. Those little dots are all the points that make up those shapes. And, once I turn off select, you can see those. So if you don't care about the exact coastline, then that gives you a nice quick way to do that. But if you do, and maybe it's a combination, maybe you can do that, and then you can go to the select, and each of these, each hexagon is its own little, actually a couple of little shapes, and so you can delete them. You can say, I want to delete that one, and I want to delete this one because I care about the coastline in this particular area. You can do that, and then you can draw in your own coastline. So that's that. The only remaining thing then, let me turn the trace underlay back down to 60% so we can see the underlying map a little bit. But then once I do that, I can come into features, and I can pick, now I had this filtered by city, which is probably a good idea. But if you want to see them all, you can see them all. You can filter them by classic, which is the Mistara style. And, he has the map from before has a particular style with just a dot for the city icon, but I'm using the classic 80s icons, and so this is the city of Tadoon, and it's multi-line. This is a new feature to Worldographer, to have multi-line labels on this particular screen. Otherwise, you'd have to do it on a different one, and we can place this here, and we can play with the font with a configure. Up here, there's a configure label styles to play with the font. That's the city font is what's set here, and so that's why it's doing that. And then up here we've got this other one is called Cabelin, C-A-B-E-L, keep. There you go. And it is a keep, which we have a slightly different icon for. So we can put this up there. But you get the idea. That's what you would be doing. Rivers, back to the features, back to the shapes drawer if you want to do rivers, and you do them as lines or curves, depending. You can then have no fill, have a color, set, the width. This is a percentage of the hex, whatever you think is worthwhile. And then I can, trace that river there. And again, so that gives you an idea. That's pretty much the whole shebang as far as doing this. Again, look for a couple of enhancements, probably in that next update, 1.4.6, where we're going to allow you to select an area and only apply the selection. Oh, what happened to that? I probably know what is going on there. Shapes. We're on the shapes drawer. We are above water. We want to be above the terrain with that. So yeah, so there's layers in the tool, and then and so that was by default because we had last selected a coastline, which you want to have above the water but below the terrain, below the land terrain. That's why we had that layer was still set for that other. The layer placement was still set for above water. So once I added the river, I wanted that to be above the terrain so we could see all the terrain, so we could see that. All right, so that covers it all. Again, this is Worldographer, and a look at the convert underlay, but more importantly, how to trace an underlay and get a map to match what was the original. So I hope that's useful to y'all, and happy mapping.